The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber swung open. Admiral Wilson squared his shoulders as he walked in beside Ambassador Gray. The room was designed to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose hundreds of feet above them, and the council members sat on raised platforms arranged in a half circle. "Remember, they expect us to be grateful just for being allowed in this room," Gray whispered. Wilson nodded. After 20 years in the Earth Defense Force, he had learned to hide his anger behind a mask of calm. Today would test that skill. The 12 council members looked down at the humans with expressions ranging from boredom to mild disgust. Each alien was different. Some had scales, others had too many eyes, and one seemed to be made of living crystal. But they all shared the same look of superiority. "The representatives from Earth may present their case," announced High Counselor Morix, his blue skin shimmering under the lights. "Though we remind you that your speaking time is limited to 10 minutes, as befits a single-system species." Gray stepped forward, her silver hair contrasting with her dark blue uniform. At 62, she had spent half her life trying to secure humanity's place in the galactic community. "Honorable Council," she began, her voice steady, "we come before you not as supplicants but to address serious violations of the Treaty of Sol, signed 80 years ago when humanity first joined the galactic community." She activated a holographic projector. Images appeared in the air: a destroyed colony ship, burned settlements on Mars's southern hemisphere, and technical schematics with sections highlighted. "In the past 5 years, 17 of our colony ships have been destroyed. The Council blamed these incidents on equipment failure or space anomalies." Gray swiped to a new image. "This is recovered footage showing ships matching Council member designs attacking our vessels." Murmurs spread through the chamber. A reptilian counselor named Vex leaned forward. "These are serious accusations, Ambassador. Perhaps your primitive sensors misidentified natural phenomena. Or perhaps these are clever fakes." His forked tongue flicked out. "After all, humans are known for their creativity." Wilson had heard enough. He stepped forward, breaking protocol. "We also have evidence of Council agents sabotaging our technological development," he said. With a wave of his hand, the hologram changed to show alien figures infiltrating research labs. "Every time we approach a breakthrough in faster-than-light travel or weapons technology, mysterious accidents occur." High Counselor Morix banged his gavel. "Admiral Wilson, you are not recognized to speak. Ambassador Gray, control your military escort." Gray ignored the reprimand. "For 80 years, humanity has tried to be a good galactic citizen. We've traded fairly, shared our unique cultural achievements, and respected Council boundaries. In return, you've treated us like children, dangerous children to be contained." She took a deep breath. "We come today with an ultimatum, not a petition." The chamber went silent. Even the Council guards at the door turned to look. "Earth demands the following. First, acknowledge Council involvement in the attacks on our ships and sabotage of our research. Second, agree to a new treaty recognizing humanity's right to expand to any unclaimed system. Third, end all restrictions on our technological development." A tall, willowy counselor with glowing eyes laughed. "Or what exactly? Your species controls one small planetary system. Your ships can barely reach the nearest stars. What possible leverage could you have?" Admiral Wilson stepped forward again. "War, Counselor Alara. If these terms are not met, within 3 Earth weeks, the United Earth government will consider itself at war with the Galactic Council." The Council chamber erupted in laughter. Several members bent over, their strange alien bodies shaking with amusement. Only Counselor Alara remained composed, her glowing eyes studying the humans carefully. High Counselor Morix wiped a tear-like fluid from his eye. "Admiral, while we appreciate the entertainment, threatening the combined might of 12 spacefaring civilizations with your primitive fleet is like a cave dweller threatening a modern army with a pointed stick." Ambassador Gray remained calm. "We are not bluffing, counselors. Humanity has been preparing for this possibility for decades." "With what?" asked Vex, still chuckling. Your fastest ships would take years to reach even our closest outposts. Wilson smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. There is much about humanity you've chosen not to learn, Counselor. Morix banged his gavel again. Enough of this farce. The Council rejects your so-called evidence and your absurd demands. Earth will remain classified as a Class 3 developing world, with all the restrictions that entails. This meeting is adjourned. As the Council members began to rise, Gray called out, 3 weeks, Counselors. After that, remember that you chose this path. Walking back through the vast hallways of the Council station, Wilson and Gray remained silent until they reached their ship. The small vessel seemed pitiful compared to the massive Council ships docked nearby. Inside the secure briefing room, Gray finally spoke. That went exactly as expected. Wilson nodded. They're so convinced of their superiority they can't imagine us as a threat. He touched a panel on his wrist. A hidden communication system activated, linking them directly to Earth Command 40 light-years away. The connection was instant, proof of at least one technology humans had kept secret. Command, this is Wilson. The Council has rejected our terms, a voice replied immediately. Understood, Admiral. Did they believe our threat? No, sir. They laughed at us. There was a brief pause. Very well. You are authorized to activate the Prometheus Protocol. All fleet commanders have been notified. Good luck and Godspeed. The connection ended. Wilson looked at Gray, his expression grim. It's done. Gray walked to the view screen, looking out at the massive Council station. All those years of being underestimated, treated as inferiors. It ends now. Wilson joined her. Project Spartacus is ready? All ships are in position? Yes. The first strike teams will deploy the moment we're clear of Council space. Gray's voice was quiet. The hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt have completed the final vessels. Earth's colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan have evacuated all non-essential personnel to the underground shelters. The quantum displacement drives have been installed on all major warships. Wilson nodded. And the Council has no idea that we can appear inside their defense grids without warning. He shook his head. Their arrogance will be their downfall. As their ship undocked, a Council patrol vessel moved alongside, escorting them out as if they were unruly children being shown the door. Gray watched them through the view screen. They still think we're using conventional drives. They'll track us at light speed heading back to Earth, never suspecting we'll drop into quantum space the moment we're out of their sensor range. Wilson's hand hovered over the ship's communication panel. One message to Fleet Command would launch humanity's first strike. Ships hidden throughout human space, more ships than the Council believed humans could possibly possess, waited for his signal. The Council has had 10,000 years to prepare for war, he said quietly. We've had less than a century. But we had something they didn't. Necessity, Gray finished his thought. The mother of invention. Wilson pressed the panel. And in 3 weeks, they'll learn what humans can accomplish when backed into a corner. As their ship accelerated away from the Council station, the escorting patrol vessel peeled away, its crew likely already forgetting the amusing humans who had dared to threaten the mighty Galactic Council. They had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks passed. On the Council homeworld of Talos Prime, Security Director Vorn studied the reports with growing irritation. 4 outposts near human space had gone silent in the past 12 hours. No distress signals, no signs of battle. They simply stopped communicating. Communications failure, suggested his assistant. The humans lack the ability to cross such distances quickly, let alone attack our installations. Vorn wasn't convinced. Send probe ships to each location, double the patrols along the border of human space. Across the room, Counselor Alara watched silently. Unlike the other Council members, she had not laughed at the human threat. In her 900 years, she had learned that desperation could make even primitive species dangerous. You're worried, she said, approaching Vorn. You think they actually attacked us? Impossible, Vorn replied too quickly. But still we should investigate. Captain Reed stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force ship Nightshade. The vessel was small compared to Council warships, but it had something no Council ship possessed: a quantum displacement drive. Status. Report, Reed ordered. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Park, looked up from her console. All 3 outposts neutralized, Captain. No alarms triggered. The Council still doesn't know we were there. Reed nodded, satisfied. Any casualties? None, on our side. We followed orders and evacuated all alien personnel before destroying the facilities. Reed looked at the main screen, which showed the stars around them. Somewhere out there, 5 other human strike teams were hitting similar targets. The first phase of the Prometheus protocol was underway. Set course for the Cygnus Armory, Reed ordered. Prepare displacement in 5 minutes. The Nightshade moved silently through space. To any observers, it would appear to be traveling at conventional speeds. But when it was safely away from any watching eyes, Reed gave the command. Activate quantum displacement. The stars blurred around them. The ship seemed to fold in on itself, disappearing from normal space. When it reappeared an instant later, they were inside the defensive perimeter of the Cygnus Armory, the largest weapons storage facility in this sector of Council space. Alarms immediately sounded on the bridge. They've detected us, Park shouted. Too late, Reed said calmly. Deploy the boarding teams. We have 20 minutes to take what we need and destroy the rest. On Earth's moon, Dr. Mason stood in a vast underground laboratory. Hundreds of scientists and engineers worked around her, all focused on a shimmering dome of energy in the center of the room. General Thompson entered the lab, his face grim. The first strikes are complete, but the Council will respond soon. How close are you to finishing the shield? Mason wiped sweat from her forehead. The prototype works. We can create a shield that will block their energy weapons. But deploying it across all human settlements will take time. How much time? At least 2 weeks for Earth, another month for the colonies. Thompson frowned. We might not have that long. Intelligence suggests the Council is already assembling their fleet. Mason turned to face him. Then we'll have to prioritize. Earth, first, then Mars. The outer colonies will have to rely on their hidden bunkers until we can extend the shield network. Do what you can, Thompson said. I'll make sure you get all the resources you need. As he left, Mason returned to her work. On a screen nearby, she could see Admiral Wilson addressing the United Earth government. The secret war had begun. Now, they had to survive the Council's wrath. On Talus Prime, the Council chamber was in chaos. Reports of attacks flooded in from across Council space. The Cygnus Armory had been breached, its most advanced weapons stolen or destroyed. 3 shipyards had been sabotaged, and somehow the humans had planted explosives on the hulls of 6 dreadnoughts in the main Council fleet. Impossible, shouted High Counselor Morix, his blue skin now pale with shock. How could they strike so far from their world? Our sensors would have detected their ships approaching. Forn displayed a recording recovered from the Cygnus Armory. It showed a human ship appearing from nowhere, directly inside the defensive perimeter. They have developed some form of teleportation technology, he explained. They can bypass our defenses completely. Why didn't we know about this? Demanded another counselor. Alara stepped forward. Because we underestimated them. We've spent decades preventing them from advancing, never considering they might develop technologies along paths we hadn't explored. Morix slammed his fist on the table. It doesn't matter. There's still just one species with one star system. Gather the combined fleet. We will crush these upstart humans and remind them of their place in the galaxy. Admiral Wilson stood in Earth's orbital command station, watching as reports came in from the strike teams. Captain Reed's mission to the Cygnus Armory had been particularly successful. The team had captured Council weapon designs that would help improve Earth's defenses. Ambassador Gray joined him, looking at the strategic display. Phase 1 is complete. All targets neutralized with minimal casualties on both sides. Wilson nodded. But Phase 2 will be much harder. The Council fleet is gathering. Our intelligence suggests they'll launch a full-scale attack on the solar system within days. Are we ready? As ready as we can be. Wilson pointed to positions in the display. Our fleet is in position. The minefield is deployed between Mars and Jupiter. Dr. Mason's shield prototype is being installed on Earth's defense platforms. Gray looked troubled. The Council has thousands of ships. We have fewer than 300, even counting the ones we've kept hidden. Numbers aren't everything, Wilson reminded her. Our ships can appear and disappear at will, and we have other surprises waiting. A communications officer approached them. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Talos Prime. The Council is demanding our immediate surrender. Wilson laughed. Tell them we'll discuss terms after they acknowledge our original demands. They also sent visual records of their fleet, the officer added. It seems they want to intimidate us. Wilson and Gray looked at the images. Thousands of warships gathered, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything in Earth's arsenal. They still think this is about firepower, Gray said softly. Wilson nodded. That's their mistake. This was never about having bigger ships or more weapons. It's about being underestimated for too long. He turned to the communications officer. Send word to all commands. Operation Trojan Horse begins now. Captain Reed and the crew of the Nightshade watched from hiding as the massive Council fleet moved toward the solar system. Their small ship was stationed near a gas giant in a neighboring system, along with dozens of other EDF vessels. Will it work? Park asked quietly. Reed checked the countdown timer on his display. It has to. Otherwise, humanity doesn't stand a chance. The timer reached 0. Reed opened a channel to all ships in his battle group. All ships, prepare for coordinated jump. Our target is the Council flagship. Remember your training and trust. Your technology. Humanity is counting on us. As the Council fleet approached Earth, believing they faced a simple battle against an outmatched opponent, they had no idea that hundreds of human ships were about to appear in their midst, striking from impossible angles with weapons they had never seen before. The real war was just beginning. Supreme Commander Drav stood on the bridge of the Council's flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The massive ship led a fleet of over 3,000 vessels from all 12 Council species. Drav had commanded many campaigns against rebellious worlds in his 200-year career, but never had he faced such an unusual enemy. We are approaching the outer boundary of the human solar system, Commander, reported his second-in-command. No sign of defensive positions. Drav frowned. The humans had shown surprising capabilities in their first strikes. Where was their defense? Scan for hidden ships or stations, he ordered. They must be planning something. The fleet moved past the gas giant Neptune, then Uranus. Still nothing. When they reached Saturn, they found abandoned mining stations and empty habitats. It appears they've retreated to their homeworld, said an officer. Perhaps they realized the futility of resistance. Drav wasn't convinced. Maintain battle readiness. Deploy scout ships ahead of the main fleet. As they approached the orbit of Mars, the scouts reported the same thing: abandoned outposts and silent defense platforms. This makes no sense, Drav muttered. They start a war and then hide? The fleet moved forward cautiously. When they reached Mars orbit, Drav gave the order to prepare for the final approach to Earth. At that moment, everything changed. Explosions rippled through the middle of the Council formation. Dozens of ships erupted in flames as hidden antimatter mines detonated among them. Ambush! Drav shouted. Battle stations! Before the Council ships could reorganize, human vessels appeared from nowhere directly among them. Unlike the small strike ships used in the first attacks, these were full-sized warships, their hulls gleaming with strange technology. How did they get past our sensors? Demanded Drav. A tactical officer looked up from his station, his face showing confusion. Sir, they were here all along, somehow hidden in plain sight. Captain Reed watched from the bridge of the Nightshade as the battle unfolded. The Council fleet dwarfed the human forces, but surprise had given them the initial advantage. Dimensional, pocket disruptors working perfectly, reported Lieutenant Park. Their ships can't tell which direction our attacks are coming from. Reed nodded. The technology allowed human ships to partially exist in multiple dimensions, making them nearly impossible to target accurately. Deploy the wormhole weapons, he ordered. Throughout the battle, small devices activated, creating miniature wormholes that redirected the Council's energy weapons back at their own ships. Several large Council vessels destroyed themselves. There, powerful beams reflected to hit their own hulls. Reed's console beeped with an incoming message from Admiral Wilson. Phase 1 of the battle is complete, Wilson said. Commence Phase 2. Good hunting, Captain. Reed turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral. Prepare for dimensional jump. Target the Council flagship. On Earth, deep below the surface in a reinforced bunker, President Allen addressed the billions of people watching on screens across the planet and colonies. Citizens of Earth and her colonies, by now you've seen the Council fleet in our skies. You know we are at war. She paused, her expression solemn. This is not a war we wanted. We asked for equality. We asked for respect. The Council responded with contempt. Images from the battle appeared beside her, showing human ships dancing between dimensions while Council vessels struggled to respond. For decades, we've developed technologies in secret. Today, those technologies are our shield and our sword. But make no mistake, this is not a war of conquest. We fight for our right to determine our own future among the stars. In lunar orbit, Dr. Mason watched as the shield generators powered up over major Earth cities. The shimmering domes would protect against the Council's energy weapons, but not against physical projectiles. And they wouldn't help the smaller settlements that hadn't received generators yet. Power at 80%, reported her assistant. We're deploying faster than expected. Mason nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. On a monitor, she watched Council ships breaking through the human lines. Despite all their technological advantages, humans were still outnumbered 10-1. How long can our fleet hold them off? She asked a nearby military officer. Not long enough, he admitted. We need something more. Mason looked at a secure terminal showing a project even more classified than the shields. Tell Admiral Wilson that Project Looking Glass is ready. It's time to use our final surprise. Commander Jackson led a small team through the darkened corridors of the Eternal Dominion. While the battle raged outside, they had a different mission: infiltrate the Council flagship and access their secure database. Security patrol ahead, whispered Miller, checking a scanner. 3 guards. Jackson signaled his team to wait. They wore specialized suits that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. The patrol passed without noticing them. Jackson led the team forward again, using a stolen access code to enter a restricted area. There it is, he said, pointing to a terminal. The main database node. Miller attached a device to the terminal while the rest of the team kept watch. Downloading now. This will give us everything: Council battle plans, defense codes, and intelligence on all their worlds. Jackson nodded. But we're looking for something specific. Find anything about Operation Seedbed or the Architect program. As Miller worked, the ship shuddered around them. The battle outside was intensifying. We need to hurry, Jackson urged. I found something, Miller said suddenly. I don't believe this. Jackson looked at the screen and his eyes widened. Download everything. Admiral Wilson needs to see this right away. Back on the Nightshade, Captain Reed was fighting the battle of his life. The Council had adapted more quickly than expected, developing countermeasures against the dimensional pocket technology. 2 more of our ships lost, reported Park, her voice tight. The Council fleet is regrouping. Reed studied the tactical display. The initial surprise had allowed them to destroy nearly 1/5 of the Council fleet, but the remaining ships still vastly outnumbered the humans. Where is that reinforcement from Lunar Command? He demanded. As if in answer, a massive energy surge appeared on his sensors. Near Earth's moon, a structure that had been disguised as a mining facility was transforming, revealing its true purpose. What is that? Asked Park. Reed smiled. That, Lieutenant, is Project Looking Glass, our last and greatest secret. The structure finished its transformation, revealing an enormous ring-shaped device. Energy crackled around it as it activated, creating what looked like a rippling mirror in space. Reed opened a channel to all human ships. All vessels, execute withdrawal pattern Omega. I repeat, withdrawal pattern Omega. Human ships began to break away from the battle, using their quantum displacement drives to vanish and reappear near the moon. The Council fleet, seeing what appeared to be a retreat, pushed forward toward Earth. "They think we're running," Park observed. Reed shook his head. "They're about to learn another lesson about humanity. We don't just develop new weapons, we change the rules of the game entirely." As the last human ships reached safety, Dr. Mason activated Project Looking Glass. The giant ring device fired a beam of energy unlike anything seen before. Where it struck, space itself seemed to fold and twist. Suddenly, hundreds of Council ships found themselves facing each other instead of Earth. Their weapons, already firing, struck their own allies. At the same time, the space around them became littered with thousands of small wormholes, pulling their ships in different directions. "Battlefield reconfiguration successful," announced Mason over the fleet channel. "Phase 3 can now begin." On the Nightshade, Reed watched as the Council fleet fell into disarray. "It won't hold them forever," he told his crew. "But it doesn't need to. We just needed time for Commander Jackson to complete his mission." As if on cue, a small stealth ship appeared near the Nightshade, transmitting a single code. "Prometheus. Complete." Reed nodded in satisfaction. "The real war is about to begin, and it's not the one the Council was expecting." Admiral Wilson studied the files that Commander Jackson's team had stolen from the Council flagship. The more he read, the more his hands shook with anger and disbelief. "Is this verified?" he asked the intelligence officer beside him. "Yes, sir. We've confirmed it from multiple sources in their database. It's all true." Ambassador Gray entered the command center, her face showing the strain of the past days. The battle in space had reached a stalemate. Earth's revolutionary technologies had prevented a quick Council victory, but the sheer number of enemy ships made total victory impossible for humanity as well. "What did they find?" she asked, noticing Wilson's expression. He gestured to the screen. "Everything. More than we ever suspected. The Council has been manipulating developing species for thousands of years." Gray sat down heavily. "Show me." Wilson brought up a series of files. According to their own records, at least 47 species have been subjected to the same treatment as humans. When they reach a certain level of development, the Council deliberately sabotages their progress. "But why?" asked Gray. "What do they gain?" "Power. Control." Wilson brought up another file. "But that's not even the most shocking part. The Council, species themselves, they weren't natural evolutions." The screen showed ancient diagrams of genetic modification and planetary engineering. They were created by another species, an ancient race called the Architects. The Architects designed the Council species to be caretakers, to nurture new intelligent life throughout the galaxy. Gray's eyes widened. Instead, they've been doing the opposite. They've been suppressing new civilizations to maintain their dominance. Exactly. They betrayed their purpose. Wilson clenched his fist. And they've been doing it for over 10,000 years. In space, the battle continued. Captain Reed and the Nightshade had suffered heavy damage but remained operational. Nearly a third of Earth's fleet had been destroyed, but they had taken down an equal number of Council ships. "New orders from command," Lieutenant Park announced. "We're to disengage and regroup at Europa." Reed frowned. "Disengage? In the middle of the battle?" "Admiral Wilson has authorized a new strategy," Park explained. "Something called Operation Truth Bomb." As Reed gave the orders to withdraw, he noticed other human ships doing the same, using their quantum displacement drives to vanish from the battlefield. The Council fleet, now more cautious after facing humanity's strange technologies, did not immediately pursue. On the Council homeworld of Talus Prime, Security Director Vorn received alarming reports. "Human ships have been detected in orbit around 5 Council member worlds," his assistant reported. "But they're not attacking military targets." "Then what are they doing?" Vorn demanded. "They're broadcasting, sending signals to every communication device on the planets." Before Vorn could respond, the large screen in his office activated by itself. The face of Admiral Wilson appeared. "People of the Galactic Council," Wilson began. "I am Admiral Wilson of Earth. Your leaders have told you that humans are dangerous, primitives who need to be controlled. Today I will show you the truth. The broadcast continued, showing the stolen council files, proof of their deliberate suppression of developing species, their sabotage of human colonies, and most damning of all, the truth about their own origins as created species meant to nurture, not control. "End this transmission," Vorn shouted. "We can't," his assistant replied. "They've taken control of our communication network." Across 5 major council worlds, billions of alien citizens watched as their leaders' secrets were exposed. On Earth, President Allen met with her military and diplomatic advisors. The news from the battlefield was mixed. Project Looking Glass had successfully disrupted the council fleet, but Earth's lunar colonies had suffered heavy bombardment in retaliation. "Casualties?" she asked grimly. 8,000 in the lunar cities, reported the defense minister. The shield technology saved the main habitats, but the outlying areas were hit hard. Allen closed her eyes briefly. "And the Mars settlements?" "Better news there. They activated their underground bunkers in time. Minimal casualties, though the surface structures are destroyed." Dr. Mason entered the room, looking exhausted but determined. "Madam President, we've managed to extend the shield network to cover 60% of Earth's major population centers. But I must report that 3 council ships broke through our defenses and attacked unshielded areas in South America and Africa." Allen's face hardened. "Civilian targets?" "Yes. They seem to be changing their strategy, trying to force our surrender by threatening our people directly." Admiral Wilson joined the meeting via secure channel from his command ship. "Madam President, Operation Truth Bomb is underway. We're broadcasting the Council's secrets to their own worlds." "Will it make a difference?" Allen asked. "It already is. We're monitoring communications from Council worlds. There are protests erupting on at least 3 planets. Their citizens are demanding answers." Ambassador Gray, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "This is what we needed. The Council's power doesn't just come from their technology or ships. It comes from the trust of their people. Now that trust is broken." Commander Jackson led his team through the corridors of a Council research facility on a small moon orbiting one of their core worlds. Unlike their mission to the flagship, this wasn't about stealing information. It was about finding something specific. "The vault should be just ahead," whispered Miller, checking the stolen facility maps. They reached a massive door with alien symbols carved into its surface. Jackson placed a device against the control panel, and after a few tense moments, the door slid open. Inside was a vast chamber filled with thousands of stasis pods, each containing what appeared to be a sleeping alien. "My God," breathed Jackson. The database was right. Miller scanned the nearest pod. They're other species that aren't part of the Council." Jackson moved to a central console. "According to what we found, these are representatives of civilizations the Council deemed too aggressive or too innovative. Instead of just suppressing their technology, they took samples and put their worlds under quarantine. Some of these pods are thousands of years old," Miller said, reading the data. Jackson activated his communicator. "Admiral Wilson, this is Jackson. We've confirmed Site Alpha. There are approximately 5,000 individuals here from at least 30 different species. Some may still be viable." Wilson's voice came through clearly. "Understood. Secure the facility. We've found similar sites at 2 other locations. This changes everything, Commander." Back in space, the main battle had paused as both sides regrouped. Captain Reed used the opportunity to repair what systems they could on the Nightshade. "How bad is it?" he asked the chief engineer. "We can fight, but the displacement drive is operating at 70% efficiency. Another jump might damage it permanently." Reed nodded. "Do what you can. I suspect we'll need to make at least one more jump before this is over." New orders appeared on his command console. Reed read them twice to be sure he understood. "Lieutenant Park, prepare the crew. We're not returning to the main battle." "Sir?" Park looked confused. "We've been reassigned. Admiral Wilson wants us to take the Nightshade directly to Talus Prime, to the Council chamber itself." Park's eyes widened. "An assassination mission?" "No," Reed said firmly. "Something much more important. We're going to deliver an invitation. His console beeped with an incoming transmission from Lunar Command. Dr. Mason's face appeared on the screen. Captain Reed, I'm sending you specifications for a device we've developed based on the architect technology we found in the Council database. Your mission is to place this device in the Council chamber. It will create a direct communication link that can't be blocked or censored. What's the message? Reed asked. Mason's expression was serious. The truth. All of it. And an offer that might end this war before we destroy each other completely. Captain Reed stood in the shadows of the Grand Council chamber on Talos Prime. His team had used the Nightshade's quantum displacement drive to bypass all the planet's defenses, appearing directly inside the most secure building in Council space. Device is ready, whispered Lieutenant Park, placing the small silver object beneath the central table where the Council members sat. How long until it activates? Reed asked. 5 minutes after we leave. Plenty of time for us to get clear. Reed nodded. Let's go. Our part is done. The rest is up to the diplomats. They slipped away just as guards entered the chamber, preparing it for an emergency council meeting. The council members had no idea what was about to happen in their sacred hall. On Earth, Admiral Wilson and Ambassador Gray prepared for the most important broadcast in human history. President Allen stood with them in the secure command center. Are you sure this will work? Allen asked. They could just destroy the device. They won't have time, Wilson explained. Once activated, it creates a quantum-linked communication channel that can't be interrupted, and it will broadcast to every council world simultaneously. Gray adjusted her formal uniform. This is our best chance to end the war without more bloodshed. The council's own people are already questioning their leaders. Now we offer an alternative. The technician at the communications station raised his hand. Connection established. You're live in 30 seconds. Wilson straightened his back. Remember, we're not just speaking to the Council now. We're speaking to trillions of beings across the galaxy. In the Council chamber, the 12 members argued furiously. Their unified front had cracked under pressure from both the human attacks and their own citizens' protests. We should have crushed them immediately, shouted Vorn, his scales flaring with anger. Now look what they've done. Turned our own people against us. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Alara, we should consider that our approach was wrong from the beginning. If we had treated humans as equals. Equals? Interrupted High Counselor Morix. They are barely space-capable. They have existed for a fraction of our lifespans. Before anyone could respond, the silver device beneath their table activated. A beam of light shot upward, forming into a three-dimensional image of Admiral Wilson, Ambassador Gray, and President Allen. Greetings, Council members, began Allen. Her voice was calm but firm, and greetings to all citizens of Council worlds who are watching this broadcast. What is this? Demanded Morix. Guards, remove this device. Guards rushed forward, but their hands passed through the device as if it weren't there. It exists, partially in another dimension, explained Wilson. A technology we developed while you were busy trying to prevent us from advancing. Gray stepped forward. We come with an offer of peace, but not a surrender. The war between us has cost thousands of lives on both sides. It need not continue. You invaded our territory, shouted Vorn. You attacked our installations. After decades of your sabotage and attacks on our ships, countered Wilson. But we're not here to argue about who started this conflict. We're here to end it. President Allen held up a data tablet. We call it the Terra Accords, a new treaty that will replace the Council with a more representative galactic assembly where all spacefaring species have equal voice. Throughout Council space, trillions of beings watched the broadcast. On 5 major worlds, massive protests had erupted when the truth about the Council's manipulation was revealed. Now they listened as humans. The primitives they had been taught to fear offered a different vision of galactic society. This is absurd, Morix said dismissively. The Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years. By suppressing any species that might challenge your power, Gray responded. We've found your stasis vaults. We know what you did to those other civilizations. Murmurs spread through the chamber as junior council members and staff reacted to this news. Many had not known about the vaults. More importantly, Wilson added, we know what you were meant to be. The architects created you to nurture new life in the galaxy, not control it. You betrayed your purpose. Elara stood suddenly. He speaks the truth, she announced to the shocked chamber. I have studied the ancient archives. Our ancestors were designed as caretakers, not rulers. Forn snarled and drew a weapon, pointing it at Elara. Traitor! You would side with these primitives? Before he could fire, his own guards seized him. The broadcast had affected them too. The choice is yours, President Allen said. Join us in creating something better, or face your own people's judgment. The truth cannot be hidden any longer. 5 years later, Admiral Wilson stood on his porch overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Now retired, he had traded his uniform for comfortable civilian clothes. In the sky above, ships from dozens of species moved in orderly patterns, arriving for the inaugural session of the Galactic Assembly. Ambassador Gray, now Secretary General Gray, pulled up in a government vehicle. She looked more formal than ever in her assembly uniform, but her smile was warm as she approached her old friend. Enjoying retirement? She asked. Wilson laughed. Most days. It's strange not having a war to fight or a crisis to manage. Today is historic, Gray said, looking up at the ships. Representatives from 57 species, including all former council members, even the beings we freed from the stasis vaults, have sent delegates. And the architects? Any sign of them? Gray shook her head. Not yet. Dr. Mason's expedition is following leads from the old council archives. She believes they might have left the galaxy entirely, moving on to seed life elsewhere. Wilson nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps someday we'll find them, or perhaps we've already become what they intended, caretakers rather than conquerors. A small craft landed nearby. Captain Reed, now Admiral Reed, stepped out with Lieutenant Park, who commanded her own ship now. We couldn't miss this, Reed said, shaking Wilson's hand. The first official meeting of the Assembly. 5 years ago, who would have believed it possible? Not the Council, that's for sure, Wilson replied with a smile. They watched as more ships descended toward the massive assembly building that had been constructed near the old United Nations headquarters in New York. Ships of every size and design, carrying beings that only years ago might have been enemies. Was it worth it? Park asked quietly. The war, the sacrifices? Wilson thought of the memorial he had visited just yesterday, names of those lost in the lunar bombardments and the space battles. Too many names. War is never worth it, he said finally. But what came after? A galaxy where species are judged by their actions, not their age or technology. That was worth fighting for. Gray's communicator beeped. They're ready for the opening ceremony. We should go. As they boarded Gray's vehicle, Wilson took one last look at the sky filled with alien ships. He remembered standing in the council chamber, being laughed at for suggesting humans could challenge the mighty Galactic Council. No one was laughing now. Humanity had proven itself not just through strength of arms, but through strength of vision. They hadn't just won a war, they had changed the galaxy. As the craft lifted off toward New York, Wilson smiled to himself. The Council had thought humans were bluffing when they threatened war. But humanity's greatest strength had never been their weapons or technology. It had been their ability to imagine a better future, and their determination to make it real. The new Galactic Assembly wasn't perfect. There would be conflicts and disagreements in the years to come. But for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy's future would be decided by all its peoples together, not by 12 self-appointed rulers. And that, Wilson thought, was a victory worth far more than any battle won in space. The massive warship Dominion's Edge floated silently in the cold darkness of space. Inside its war room, 12 of the galaxy's most feared military leaders sat around a glowing table. Their faces showed worry and anger. For 6 months, one human ship had made fools of them all. Admiral Krex stood at the head of the table. His dark blue skin looked almost black in the red light of the room. 3 scars ran across his face from old battles. He had won wars against entire star systems. But today he looked tired. "Show them the reports," Krex said to his aide. The holographic display came to life. Images of destroyed bases filled the air above the table. Burning space stations, wrecked supply ships, dead soldiers floating in the void. Base 17, gone. Base 23, gone. Supply Depot Kappa, gone. Krex's voice was flat. All destroyed by one human ship, the Defiant Star. General Thax slammed his fist on the table. "How is this possible? It's just one small ship." "Against our entire fleet, because they fight like demons," said Commander Vex. She was the youngest officer in the room, but she had faced the humans in battle. "They don't follow any rules. When we expect them to run, they attack. When we set traps, they spring them on us instead." Krex nodded. "I've studied their combat records. In every battle, they were outnumbered. In every battle, they should have died. But they keep winning." The room fell silent. Outside the windows, stars twinkled like tiny diamonds. Each star system represented worlds under Vorthon rule. But lately, their empire felt smaller. One human ship had changed everything. "What do we know about their crew?" asked General Thax. Krex touched a control. New images appeared. 127 humans, led by Captain Blake. Their ship is old, but they keep upgrading it with stolen technology. They've taken weapons from 6 different alien races, and somehow made them all work together. "Impossible," muttered Admiral Zork. "Different alien technologies don't mix. The power systems alone would explode." "Yet they've done it," Krex replied. "More importantly, they never leave anyone behind. If they receive a distress call, they always respond. Always. Even if it means walking into obvious danger." "Commander." Vex leaned forward. "You have an idea." Krex smiled for the first time in weeks. "I do. We've been trying to fight them ship to ship. We've been using conventional warfare against an enemy that doesn't understand the word conventional. It's time we tried something different." He touched another control. A star map appeared, showing a small system at the edge of known space. The planets glowed red, marking them as extremely dangerous. "The Telos system," Krex announced. 7 planets, all of them death worlds. The 3rd planet, Telos 7, is the worst of them all. General Thax studied the display. "I know this place. We lost a research team there 5 years ago. The planet killed them in 3 days." "Exactly," said Krex. "Telos 7 has everything that kills. Toxic air that melts metal. Gravity storms that change every few hours. Predators that hunt in packs and can smell fear from miles away. The ground itself is acidic. Even our best environmental suits last only hours there." "So how does this help us?" asked Admiral Zork. Krex's smile grew wider. "The planet also has something else. Ancient technology. Orbital defense systems left behind by a dead civilization. The systems still work, but they've been dormant for thousands of years." He highlighted several points around the planet. "These defense stations can create an energy barrier around the entire world. Nothing gets in or out once it's activated. The original builders used it to protect their world during wars. Now we'll use it as a prison." Commander Vex understood first. "A trap." "The perfect trap," Krex confirmed. "We send out a fake distress signal. A civilian transport lost and dying. The humans will have to respond. It's what they do. We lead them to Telos 7, then activate the ancient defense grid. They'll be trapped on the surface with no way to escape." "But how do we activate the defense system?" asked General Thax. Krex pulled up technical data. "Our scientists have been studying the ruins for years. We found the control codes 3 months ago. The system responds to specific energy frequencies. We can trigger it from orbit. Admiral, Zorg still looked doubtful. What if they escape before we can trap them? They won't, said Krex. The signal will come from the planet's surface. They'll have to land to investigate. Once they're down there, we activate the grid. Even if they try to leave immediately, their ship won't be fast enough. The room buzzed with quiet conversation. The plan was simple but clever. Use the humans' greatest strength against them, their need to help others. Commander Vex raised a concern. What about the planet itself? You said it kills everything. That's the beauty of it, Krex replied. We don't have to fire a single shot. We don't risk any of our ships. We don't lose any soldiers. The planet will do our job for us. In a few days, maybe a week, the humans will be dead. Problem solved. General Thax nodded slowly. It could work, but we need to make the distress signal believable. Already handled, said Commander Vex. I have a team that specializes in fake transmissions. We'll create a perfect civilian transport ID, complete with passenger manifests, cargo records, everything. Krex looked around the table. Are we all agreed? This ends the human problem once and for all. One by one, the officers nodded. They had tried everything else. Direct attacks had failed. Ambushes had backfired. Even sending their best pilots and newest ships had resulted in humiliating defeats. Prepare the fake transport, Krex ordered. Position our fastest ships along likely approach routes. When the humans take the bait, we guide them exactly where we want them to go. As the meeting ended, the officers filed out of the war room. Only Krex remained, staring at the image of Telos 7. The planet looked beautiful from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. It looked like a paradise. He knew better. Telos 7 was a killer. Soon it would kill the most dangerous humans in the galaxy. Krex touched his communication device. Signal the fleet. Operation Death Trap begins in 6 hours. Outside his window, the stars continued to twinkle. Soon those same stars would witness the end of humanity's most successful ship. The war would return to normal. The Vorthan Empire would continue its expansion across the galaxy. At least that was the plan. The bridge of the Defiant Star hummed with quiet activity. Captain Ross Blake sat in his command chair, watching the stars streak past through the main view screen. His ship was heading toward their next target, a Vorthan supply depot that had been causing trouble for human colonies. Blake was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had been fighting aliens for 15 years. His crew trusted him completely, and he trusted them. Together, they had turned an old cargo ship into the most feared vessel in this part of the galaxy. Captain, called out Communications Officer Jake Rivers from his station. I'm picking up a distress signal. Blake turned toward him. What kind of signal? Civilian transport. They're calling themselves the Peaceful Dawn. Says they're carrying refugees from the Kepler colony evacuation. Jake's fingers danced over his controls. They sound desperate, sir. Chief Engineer Kate Walsh looked up from her repair work. She was a small woman with dirty hands and a sharp mind. Captain, that signal is coming from the Telos system. That's bad news territory. Blake knew the reputation of the Telos system. Every spacer in the galaxy had heard stories about those death worlds. Ships went in and never came out. But civilians were in trouble. How many people on board? Blake asked. 237 souls, sir, Jake replied. Mostly families. They say their life support is failing. The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. The Telos system was dangerous, but they couldn't ignore people who needed help. It wasn't the human way. Dr. Emma Torres spoke up. From the science station, she was the ship's doctor and xenobiologist. Captain, I've been studying the Telos system. The third planet is particularly nasty. Toxic atmosphere, predatory wildlife, unstable gravity. It's killed every research team that's tried to land there. But it's also perfect for hiding, added Navigator Tom Nash. If someone wanted to avoid Vorthan patrols, Telos 7 would be the place to go. Blake made his decision. Jake, respond to their signal. Tell them we're coming. Sir, Kate said carefully. This could be a trap. Blake nodded. It probably is, but what if it isn't? What if there really are families dying out there? The crew exchanged glances. They had all been in situations like this before. The smart thing would be to ignore the signal and continue their mission. But none of them could live with themselves if they let civilians die. "Aria," Blake called to the ship's AI, "plot a course for the Telos system. Best speed." The artificial intelligence responded in her calm, female voice. "Course laid in, Captain. Estimated arrival time, 4 hours, 17 minutes. As the Defiant Star changed direction, Blake felt the familiar weight of command. Every decision could mean life or death for his crew. But some decisions were easier than others. Helping people in trouble was always the right choice. 3 hours later, they arrived at the edge of the Telos system. The star was old and red, casting an eerie light on the 7 planets that orbited it. Each world looked deadly in its own way. "Scanning for the transport," Jake announced. "Got them. They're in orbit around Telos 7, but barely. Their orbit is decaying." "Any sign of Vorthon ships?" Blake asked. Tom checked his sensors. "Nothing on long-range scan, but this system has a lot of interference. They could be hiding anywhere." Aria's voice filled the bridge. "Captain, I am detecting massive energy signatures buried in the planet's crust. The readings are consistent with ancient defensive technology." Blake felt a chill. "Defensive technology?" "Unknown origin," Aria continued. "The systems appear to be dormant, but they are still functional. I recommend extreme caution." Before Blake could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. The lights flickered and the deck vibrated under their feet. "What's happening?" Blake demanded. Tom's hands flew over his controls. "Energy barrier forming around the planet. It's coming from multiple points on the surface." "Full reverse," Blake ordered. "Get us out of here." But it was too late. A shimmering wall of energy surrounded Telos 7, trapping everything in orbit. The Defiant Star hit the barrier and bounced, back like a ball hitting a wall. "We're trapped," Kate announced. "The barrier is too strong. Our weapons can't break through." Blake gritted his teeth. "The transport, scan for it." Jake worked frantically. "I'm not reading any transport, sir. The signal is coming from a probe. On the planet's surface. It's fake." The bridge crew realized the truth at the same moment. They had been tricked. The distress signal was bait and they had taken it. "Incoming transmission," Jake reported. "It's Admiral Krex of the Vorthon fleet." Blake nodded grimly. "Put him on screen." The image of Admiral Krex appeared on the view screen. The alien's scarred face showed satisfaction and cruel amusement. "Captain Blake," Krex said smoothly. "Welcome to your tomb." "Krex," Blake replied calmly. "I should have known you were behind this." "You humans are so predictable," the Admiral continued. "You simply cannot resist helping others even when it's obviously a trap. Your compassion is your greatest weakness." Blake smiled coldly. "We'll see about that." "The energy barrier around the planet is impenetrable," Krex explained. "Your ship will be pulled down by the planet's gravity within hours. Even if you survive, the crash Telos 7 will kill you. The air is poison, the ground is acid. The animals hunt in packs. You have perhaps 3 days before you all die horribly." "And you'll just watch from up there?" Blake asked. "Exactly. I don't need to risk my ships or my soldiers. The planet will do my work for me. Your reign of terror ends here, Captain." The transmission ended. Blake stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders. "Well," Blake said finally, "we've been in worse situations." Kate laughed despite their circumstances. "When?" "Remember the Proxima incident? We were outnumbered 50-1. That was different," Tom pointed out. "We had space to maneuver." "Now we have a whole planet," Blake replied. "Kate, how long before we're pulled down?" 2 hours, maybe 3, she answered. "The barrier is interfering with our engines." Blake stood up. "Then we better get ready for a crash landing. Emma, start preparing medical supplies. Tom, find us the best landing spot you can. Kate, secure the engine room. Jake, try to raise any other ships that might be trapped here." As his crew rushed to follow orders, Blake looked out at the planet below. Telos 7 looked beautiful from space, but he knew it was a killer. The Vorthons expected it to destroy them. Blake had other plans. He had been underestimated before. It never ended well for his enemies. The Defiant Star began its final descent toward the surface of the Death World. The Defiant Star crashed into the surface of Telos 7 with tremendous force. The ship plowed through purple trees and strange rocks before coming to rest in a shallow valley. Steam rose from the hull as the toxic rain began eating at the metal. "Captain." Blake pulled himself up from the floor of the bridge. His head was bleeding, but he was alive. Around him, his crew was doing the same thing, checking for injuries and damage. "Report," Blake called out. Kate's voice came through the communication system. "Engine room is flooded with some kind of acid vapor. Main power is down to 40%. We're breathing recycled air, but the filters won't last long in this atmosphere. Hull. Breach on deck 3, added Tom. The local air is seeping in. It smells like rotten eggs mixed with burning metal." Blake looked at the main screen. Outside, they could see the alien landscape of Telos 7. The sky was a sickly yellow color. Strange plants moved without any wind. In the distance, something howled, a sound that made everyone's skin crawl. "Aria," Blake said to the ship's AI, "give me a full environmental analysis." "Atmospheric composition is 70% methane, 20% sulfur compounds, 10% various toxins," Aria reported. "Ground acidity level is extreme. Local gravity varies between 0.8 and 1.4, Earth standard, changing every 6 to 8 hours. Temperature ranges from -20 to +60 Celsius. Dr. Emma Torres shook her head. "We can't survive outside for more than a few minutes without full environmental suits." "How many suits do we have?" Blake asked. "Enough for 30 people," Kate replied, "for maybe 6 hours each before the acid eats through them." Blake did the math. 127 crew members, 30 suits, it wasn't nearly enough. "Sir," Jake called from his station, "I'm picking up other ships on the scanner. Looks like we're not the first ones to get trapped here." Blake studied the readings. "How many?" "At least 12 different wrecks scattered around this area. Some look old, some look recent. None of them are transmitting any life signs." Blake made a decision. "We're going outside. Small teams, full protection, quick searches. Those wrecks might have supplies we can use." Dr. Torres looked worried. "Captain, the environment will kill us." "Only if we let it," Blake replied. "Emma, I want you to study samples of everything: air, water, plants, soil. Find out what makes this place tick. Kate, start working on extending our life support. Tom and Jake, you're with me. We're going wreck hunting." An hour later, Blake and his team stepped outside the ship. The environmental suits were bulky and awkward, but they kept the deadly atmosphere at bay. The ground under their feet was soft and squishy, like walking on wet leather. "Stay close," Blake ordered through the suit radio. "Watch for movement. According to the reports, this place has predators." They walked toward the nearest wreck, a Vorthon scout ship that had crashed maybe a year ago. The hull was partially dissolved by acid rain, but parts of it were still intact. "Look at this," Tom said, pointing to claw marks on the ship's hull. "Something big tried to get inside." They entered through a hole in the side. Inside, they found the remains of the Vorthon crew, but they also found something valuable: spare parts, tools, and most importantly, different types of environmental suits. "These Vorthon suits are designed for different atmospheres," Kate observed. "If we can modify them, we might be able to stay outside longer." As they searched, Jake made an interesting discovery. "Captain, look at this data pad. It's a Vorthon research log. They were studying the local plants before they died." Blake read over the alien text. "Aria, can you translate this?" The AI's voice came through their suit radios. "The log indicates that several local plant species produce compounds that neutralize atmospheric toxins. The Vorthons were attempting to create breathing filters using these plants." "So there's a way to breathe the air safely?" Emma asked from back at the ship. "Possibly," Aria confirmed. "But the Vorthons died before completing their research." Blake smiled inside his helmet. "Then we'll finish what they started. Emma, I'm sending you samples of everything we find. Tom, start collecting these plants. Kate, Grab any technology that looks useful. They spent 4 hours exploring wrecks and collecting samples. By the time they returned to the ship, they had gathered materials from 6 different alien species. Each wreck told a story of ships that had been trapped and died, but Blake noticed something else. The newer wrecks were in better condition. The older ones were almost completely dissolved. Area, he said once they were back inside. Analyze the decay rates of these wrecks. Interesting, the AI responded after a few minutes. The older wrecks show signs of being broken down by biological processes, not just chemical ones. Something is actively recycling the metal. Dr. Torres looked up from her samples. Captain, I think I know what. These soil samples contain microorganisms that eat metal. But they also produce something interesting, a compound that could strengthen our hull against the acid. Blake felt a spark of hope. Keep working on it. What about the breathing problem? The plants Jake collected do produce neutralizing compounds, Emma continued. If I can extract and concentrate them, we might be able to create breathable air, filters. It won't be pleasant, but it could keep us alive. Kate had been working on the Vorthon technology. Captain, their environmental suits use a different power system. If I can adapt it to our equipment, we could extend our outside time from 6 hours to maybe 24 hours. Blake gathered his senior officers around the small table in his quarters. Outside, something screamed in the distance, a sound like metal being torn apart. Here's the situation, Blake began. The Vorthons expect us to die. They're probably watching from orbit, waiting for our life signs to disappear. What they don't expect is for us to adapt. Adapt? Tom asked. Captain, this place is designed to kill everything. No, Blake replied. This place is designed to kill everything that doesn't belong here. But what if we make ourselves belong? Emma understood first. You want us to change our biology to survive here. Not change, Blake corrected. Improve. Emma, those microorganisms you found, can they be beneficial instead of harmful? Maybe, she said slowly. If we can control them, they might help us process the toxic air. But it would be dangerous. We'd essentially be infecting ourselves. Kate, Blake continued, those plant compounds, can we use them to create permanent air filtration systems? I think so. The ship's air recyclers could be modified. We'd have clean air as long as we had plants to process. Blake looked at each of them. The Vorthons gave us a death world. Let's turn it into our home. Jake spoke up. Captain, I managed to boost our communications array. We can reach the Vorthon fleet if you want to send a message. Blake grinned. Patch me through to Admiral Krex. A few minutes later, the alien admiral's face appeared on the screen. He looked surprised to see Blake alive. Captain Blake, Krex said. Still breathing, I see. Enjoy it while you can. You have perhaps 2 days left. Actually, Admiral, I wanted to thank you. Blake replied cheerfully. Krex's expression changed to confusion. Thank me? For the training exercise. This planet is teaching us things we never knew about survival. It's quite educational. You're insane, Krex said. The planet is killing you. The planet is challenging us, Blake corrected. There's a difference. By the way, if you have any more challenging environments, we'd be happy to test ourselves against them. Krex's face showed anger and disbelief. You cannot survive there. We'll see, Blake said calmly. Blake out. The transmission ended. Tom stared at his captain. Sir, was that wise? Now he knows we're planning something. Blake shrugged. Let him know. Confidence is a weapon too. Besides, we have work to do. As night fell on Telos 7, the human crew worked frantically. They had 72 hours to prove that humanity could survive anywhere. The clock was ticking, but Blake had faith in his people. They had never let him down before. 3 weeks had passed since the Defiant Star crashed on Telos 7. Admiral Krex sat in his command chair aboard the Dominion's edge, staring at the sensor readings with growing confusion. This can't be right, he muttered to Commander Vex. Check. The sensors again. Vex ran the scan for the third time. The readings are accurate, sir. The human ship is showing full power. More than full power, actually. They're generating 50% more energy than when they first arrived. Impossible, Krex said. The planet should have killed them by now. What about life signs? That's the strange part, Vex replied. I'm reading more life signs now than before. A lot more. Krex stood up. How many more? When they crashed, there were 127 humans. Now I'm reading over 200 life forms around their crash site. Admiral Zork, who had been listening, shook his head. The sensors must be damaged. Nothing survives on Tilo 7 for more than a few days. Send down a probe, Krex ordered. I want to see what's happening. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, Captain Blake was standing outside the Defiant Star without an environmental suit. He was breathing the toxic air as if it were normal. Around him, his crew worked on various projects, all of them breathing freely. Dr. Emma Torres had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The plant compounds she had discovered didn't just neutralize toxins, they actually made humans stronger. The crew had spent 2 weeks gradually adapting their biology, and now they could survive in conditions that would kill most alien species. Captain, called Kate from the top of a new structure they were building. The power collectors are working perfectly. We're pulling energy directly from the lightning storms. Blake looked up at the massive metal framework rising above their camp. Kate had designed it to capture the electrical energy from Telo 7's frequent storms. Each lightning strike powered their growing settlement for hours. How's the mining operation going? Blake asked Tom, who was covered in dirt and grinning. Better than expected, Tom replied. The acid that dissolves most metals actually purifies the rare elements we need. We're extracting materials that would cost millions of credits anywhere else. Blake walked through their expanding settlement. What had started as a simple crash site was now a thriving community. They had built workshops, living quarters, and laboratories. Gardens of local plants provided both food and air purification, but the most amazing change was in the people themselves. The human crew wasn't just surviving, they were thriving. The harsh environment had made them stronger, faster, and more resilient. Blake, called a voice from the edge of the settlement. It was Maria Santos, a pilot from a crashed merchant ship they had found 3 days earlier. She was one of 17 survivors they had rescued from various wrecks around the planet. What is it, Maria? Blake asked. The big predators are back, but they're not attacking. They're just watching. Blake followed her to the perimeter. Sure enough, a pack of 6-legged creatures with silver fur stood at the edge of the clearing. These were the apex predators of Telos 7, deadly hunters that could tear apart a shuttle with their claws. But they weren't acting aggressive. They seemed almost curious. Dr. Torres joined Blake at the fence. I think they're learning, she said. We've been here long enough that they recognize us as part of the ecosystem now. Part of the ecosystem? Blake asked. Think about it, Emma explained. We're not trying to fight the planet anymore. We're working with it. We use its storms for power, its plants for air, its acid for mining. The local wildlife is starting to see us as beneficial rather than threatening. Jake came running from the communications center. Captain, the Vorthen probe is coming down. It'll be here in 10 minutes. Blake smiled. Perfect timing. Everyone, prepare for visitors. As the Vorthen probe descended through the toxic clouds, its cameras recorded everything. The images it sent back to the fleet above showed something impossible. Where there should have been wreckage and death, there was a bustling settlement. Humans worked alongside survivors from a dozen different species. The toxic storms that should have destroyed everything were being harvested for energy. The acid rain that dissolved metal was being collected and used for industrial processes. Most shocking of all, the humans were thriving. They moved freely in the poisonous atmosphere. They had built structures that withstood the planet's violent weather. They had turned the deadliest world in known space into a home. This is impossible, Admiral Krex whispered as he watched the feed. Commander Vex was equally stunned. Sir, they're not just surviving, they're building something. Look at those energy readings. The probe's sensors showed massive construction projects underway. The humans were building some kind of industrial complex using technology scavenged from crashed ships and materials mined from the planet itself. What are they building? Krex demanded. His science officer studied the readings. It appears to be everything, sir. Manufacturing facilities, research laboratories, defensive structures. They're creating a permanent base. On the surface, Blake watched the probe hovering overhead. He activated his communicator. Admiral Krex, this is Captain Blake. Thanks for sending the probe. Would you like a guided tour? Krex's voice came through, filled with disbelief. How are you alive? We're not just alive, Blake replied cheerfully. We're better than ever. This planet has been very educational. We've learned so much about survival, adaptation, and resource management. You can't survive there indefinitely, Krex insisted. The planet will kill you eventually. Blake laughed. Admiral, the planet isn't trying to kill us anymore. We're part of it now. In fact, we've made some friends. As if on cue, one of the silver-furred predators walked calmly through the settlement. The humans barely glanced at it. The creature had learned that these strange beings were not prey but partners in the planet's ecosystem. Impossible, Krex breathed. Would you like to meet some of our other residents? Blake continued. We've rescued survivors from 12 different species. Turns out, when you work together and adapt to the environment instead of fighting it, amazing things happen. The probe's cameras showed the truth. Aliens who had been enemies for generations were working side by side with humans. A Vorthon engineer was teaching a human how to repair energy conduits. A Zilonian scientist was helping. Dr. Torres studied local plant life. Former slaves and former masters were building a new society together. By the way, Blake added, we wanted to ask about those orbital defense platforms, the ones you used to trap us here. We've figured out how to control them. Krex felt his blood turn cold. What? The ancient civilization that built them left quite a bit of information in their ruins. We've been studying their technology. Very advanced stuff. We should be able to take full control of the defense grid within a few days. The Admiral realized what this meant. The humans hadn't just survived his trap. They had turned it into the foundation of a fortress. The same barriers that imprisoned them would soon protect them. You're bluffing, Krex said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Blake asked. Arya, show Admiral Krex what we found in the temple complex yesterday. The probe's feed switched to show massive underground ruins. Ancient technology hummed with power. Human engineers worked alongside alien specialists to understand systems that were older than the Vorthan Empire itself. This technology predates anything in our databases, Blake explained. The beings who built it were incredibly advanced. They didn't just create weapons, they created tools for building civilizations. And now we understand how to use them. Krexy stared at the images in growing horror. The humans had done the impossible. They had taken his perfect trap and turned it into their greatest advantage. We'll be in touch soon, Admiral, Blake said. We have some interesting proposals to discuss with you. The communication ended. Commander Vex looked at her superior. Sir, what do we do? Krex stared at the planet below. 3 weeks ago he had been confident of victory. Now he was looking at a potential disaster that could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. Send a message to Imperial Command, he said quietly. Tell them we have a problem. Admiral Krex stood on the bridge of the Dominion's edge, reading the message from Imperial Command for the 3rd time. The words were clear, but he couldn't believe them. Sir? Commander Vex asked quietly. What are your orders? Krex crumpled, the message in his fist. Imperial Command wants us to negotiate. They're actually considering the human proposals. The humans made proposals? General Thax asked, confused. 3 days ago, Krex replied bitterly. While we were trying to figure out how they survived, they sent detailed plans to every major government in the galaxy. Trade agreements, technology sharing, defensive alliances. They're offering to share what they learned on Telos 7, Commander. Vex pulled up the communications logs. Sir, look at this. In the past week, we've received diplomatic requests from 17 different star nations. They all want to establish relations with the humans on Telos 7. Krex felt a headache building behind his eyes. They're treating the humans like a legitimate government now. Because they are one, said Admiral Zork grimly. According to galactic law, any group that successfully colonizes and defends a world has the right to claim it. The humans have done both. Suddenly, every alarm on the bridge started blaring. The lights flickered and the ship shuddered. What's happening? Krex demanded. The orbital defense grid, shouted the sensor officer. It's powering down. On the main screen, they watched as the energy barrier around Talos 7 slowly faded away. The blue shimmer that had trapped ships for weeks simply disappeared. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. It's Captain Blake. Blake's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, they could see the bridge of the Defiant Star. But it looked different now, bigger, more advanced with technology that seemed to blend human engineering with alien designs. Admiral Krex, Blake said with a friendly smile. Good morning. I hope you're having a pleasant day. What did you do? Krex demanded. We solved your trap, Blake replied. The orbital defense system is now under our complete control. We can raise or lower the barrier whenever we choose. We can also extend it to protect friendly ships or use it to target hostile ones. Krex felt his worst fears becoming reality. You're threatening us. Not at all, Blake said calmly. We're offering you choices. You can continue to be our enemy, in which case this system becomes a military fortress that blocks your expansion in this sector. Or you can accept our invitation to establish peaceful relations. What kind of relations? Asked Commander Vex. Blake's expression became serious. We've built something special here, Commander. 17 different species working together, sharing knowledge, solving problems. We've proven that cooperation works better than conquest. You're naive, Krex said. The galaxy doesn't work that way. It does here, Blake replied. We've created a society where strength comes from diversity, where problems are solved through innovation, not violence, and we're offering to share what we've learned. Admiral Zork leaned forward. What exactly are you offering? Technology, for starters, Blake said. We've developed new ways to process toxic environments, harvest energy from natural phenomena, and create materials stronger than anything in your databases. We're also offering defensive partnerships. Defensive partnerships? Krex asked suspiciously. The ancient technology we've discovered isn't just defensive, Blake explained. It's also incredibly advanced manufacturing equipment. We can build ships, weapons, and tools that surpass anything currently available. But we'll only share this technology with peaceful civilizations. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. The humans weren't just offering friendship. They were offering to become the galaxy's most advanced technological civilization. And if we refuse? Krex asked. Blake shrugged. Then you continue on your current path, but you do it without access to Talos 7, without our technology, and with the knowledge that there's now a power in this galaxy that can stop your expansion whenever necessary. Before Krex could respond, his communications officer interrupted. Sir, we're receiving messages from the Imperial Senate. They're ordering us to accept the human proposals. What? Krex spun around. The Senate has been in emergency session for 2 days, the officer continued. They've reviewed all the intelligence on Talos 7. They want immediate peace negotiations. Blake nodded. Your government is wise, Admiral. They understand that this situation has changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The old ways of expansion through conquest are ending. The new way is expansion through cooperation. Krex felt everything he had worked for slipping away. You're destroying our empire. No, Blake said gently. We're offering your empire a chance to evolve. Join us and your people will have access to technologies that will make life better for everyone. Continue as you are, and you'll find yourself increasingly isolated as other civilizations choose cooperation over conflict. Commander Vex stepped forward. Captain Blake, what guarantees do we have that you won't use this technology against us? The same guarantee we give everyone, Blake replied. We don't attack unless attacked. We don't conquer, we invite. We don't force. We offer choices. It's worked so far. Admiral Zork asked the question everyone was thinking. How do we know you're telling the truth? Blake smiled. Because you're going to see for yourself. We're inviting diplomatic missions from every major government to visit Telos 7. Come and see what we've built. Meet the people from different species working together. Judge for yourself whether this is something worth joining. Krex stared at the human captain. 3 weeks ago he had been certain of victory. Now he was looking at defeat, but a defeat that came with an invitation instead of destruction. What about our military forces? Krex asked. What about our expansion plans? Your military can focus on protecting your people instead of conquering others, Blake suggested. As for expansion, there are thousands of unclaimed worlds in the galaxy. We'll help you find and develop them peacefully. The communication officer approached Krex with another message. Sir, direct orders from the Emperor himself. We are to begin immediate peace negotiations. Krex read the message and sighed. The decision was out of his hands now. Very well, Captain Blake, he said formally. The Vorthan Empire accepts your invitation to negotiate. Blake's smile became genuine. Excellent. You can send your diplomatic team down whenever you're ready. Fair warning, though. The planet might seem different from what you expect. Different how? Vex asked. It's not a death world anymore. Blake replied. It's home. 2 hours later, Admiral Krex stood in the shuttle bay, watching as his diplomatic team prepared to descend to Telos 7. Commander Vex was leading the mission, along with scientists, engineers, and cultural specialists. Remember, Krex told them, you're going down to the most dangerous planet in known space. Vex nodded, but she was thinking about Captain Blake's words. The planet that had been designed to kill everything had somehow become a home for beings from across the galaxy. As the shuttle descended through the atmosphere, Vex saw the truth with her own eyes. The toxic storms were being harvested for energy. The acid rains were being collected for industrial use. The deadly predators were living peacefully alongside alien settlers. The shuttle landed in the middle of a thriving city that hadn't existed a month ago. Vex stepped out and breathed air that should have killed her instantly, but the humans had somehow made even the atmosphere safe for visitors. Captain Blake was waiting for them with a diverse group of representatives from the 17 species, now living on Telos 7. Former enemies stood side by side, all of them working toward common goals. Welcome to Telos 7, Blake said warmly. Welcome to the future. As Vex looked around at the impossible city, at the cooperation between former enemies, at the technology that turned death into life, she realized that everything had changed. The humans hadn't just survived their trap, they had used it to build something that would reshape the galaxy, and they had done it all without firing a single shot.